Hello, I'm Krista West of Avlea Folk Embroidery. And in this how-to video, we're going to learn how to turn our embroidery into a cushion cover. We're going to use the really simple envelope back technique that can be sewn either by machine or by hand. And I'm going to give you a few tricks for how to get really great little corners, how to get your cushion insert correctly inserted into your cushion, and so you can be enjoying your embroidery as a cushion. This is my embroidery. First off, I want to decide what size pillow insert I want to use this on. Right here, I have an 18-inch, so I just lay the embroidery over it. It looks okay, but it looks like there's a lot of white space over here. So next up, I'm going to try a 16-inch pillow insert and lay it over there, and I look at it and go, yep, that's the look I want. I want it to look like the border is kind of wrapping around it and almost like going into infinity. So the first thing I'll do is do that. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to measure the pillow form. This is really important because a lot of pillow forms are actually not exactly square. And this one, when I measure it, is 16.5 inches in one direction and 16 in another. I am going to add a 1/2 inch to each side for my seam allowance. So that means that for my 16 by 16.5 inch pillow form, my embroidery, I will cut my embroidery 17 by 17.5 inches. Now I'm going to measure my embroidery and add the seam allowances in. So I know that I need to cut it 17 by 17.5. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure that 17, which is going to be, let me think, 8.5 inches. I'm going to find the center of my embroidery design, and I put my 8.5 here. Another trick you can do is you can put a little Post-it note flag there if you want. And now I know that I'm going to go 17 by 17. So I am now going to pull a thread. I'm going to actually mark this with a pin first. Whoop, like that. And then I'll take and mark the other side with a pin, making sure I'm exactly 17 inches. And I will pull a thread to create a thread channel. And then I'll do the same thing for the other direction. I'll now measure next up here, and this side needs to be 17.5, which means it is going to be 8 3/4. So I'm going to stick the 8 3/4 mark of my ruler right in the center of my embroidery, and then I'm going to measure out with my pins 17.5, and then I'll pull a thread. So what do I mean by pulling a thread? What you're going to do is you're going to remove a thread from the fabric, because that will give you a very clean cutting line to trim the fabric. What I've done is that needle point where I was right here, I have just pulled up some of the fabric. You can see I've just pulled that thread of fabric, and now I'm just going to very gently pull it out. So I'm just easing it out. I always start in the middle of the embroidery just because it'll make it easier for you. And I just start pulling it out gently. Just do this kind of slowly and gently. A lot of people are really nervous about this, but learning how to pull a thread and use it for your seam allowances and for drawn thread hemming and everything like that is really important when you're working with drawn thread fabrics, because they're designed to be very true. They're designed to be very crisp and true. And now I have that open thread channel right down here. You can see where it's left a nice little gap. I like to work on a dark surface so I can see that easier. And now I'm just going to trim my embroidery like that. There we go. And now when I make my embroidery and when I finish my cushion cover, I know that all my threads are going to look they're going to be very even and very crisp because of this, because I've used this technique to trim the embroidery. Okay, now we're going to sew the embroidery to the cushion backing. I am using an Avlea cushion backing kit, but if you'd prefer to use your own fabric, all you need to do is cut 2 pieces of fabric that are slightly wider, about 3 to 4 inches wider than half the width of your embroidery. To make these, this is just a simple envelope backing technique. The reason I like this is because there are no zippers or Velcro to snag the embroidery. This is completely smooth once it's done, so there's no chance of the embroidery getting damaged. It's kind of my favorite cushion backing, plus it's really easy and simple. To do this, you then take those 2 pieces. If you're sewing it yourself, you take those 2 pieces and you overlap them, and then you just kind of put a quick line of stitching at either at the top and the bottom just to hold it in place. Now, take your embroidery, and you're going to basically put it right on top of that, kind of centering it on it. You might end up with a little bit more, little bit extra of the cushion backing, which is totally fine. You're putting it right sides together. So notice that the wrong side of my embroidery is facing up. This is the right side of the cushion kit, and this is the right side of the embroidery, and they are touching. Then I am going to pin it. You can really pin it as much or as little as you want. I am used to pinning things very minimally, but you can add more pins. But at the very least, you're going to want to pin it at top and bottom, left and right. That's the best way to pin. You can add, again, more pins if you want. Now with it pinned, I'm going to sew it at the sewing machine, or you can do this by hand with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you like your cushion covers a little bit more plump and full, you can sew it with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which will give you what's called negative ease. And it means that your cushion cover will be slightly smaller than your pillow insert, and that will give you a very full and snug effect. So it's really up to you which one you like. And it really depends project to project. Some of my cushion covers I like really snug, and some I like a little bit more kind of flatter and looser. So it's really a matter of personal preference. So I'm sewing my cushion cover with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've started kind of midway on one side, and I want to show you a fabulous little trick for the corners. So I'm going to stitch here using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure you do not run over the pins in your sewing machine. If you're using a sewing machine, you can also use this technique by hand. Now, when I get to the corner here, normally when you're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, that means that I would actually make sure that I pivot exactly where this 1/2 inch is. So let's put a mark right here. I'm going to put a little blue dot where 1/2 inch is on both sides. There's my little blue dot. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to go in a little closer so you can see me do this because it's such a cool trick. And it really makes a huge difference on your corners. What I'm going to do is I'm going to overshoot that. I'm going to actually go diagonally by about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to put another dot in here. You can do this with a dot, or you can just eyeball it, whichever works. And instead of coming down this way and stitching here and turning, I'm going to actually slightly angle my stitching to come right about here, and then I'm going to angle it back out to 1/4 inch. And what that does is it gives you a really nice knife edge. So I'm going to show you how I do that. See how I came out, and I'm kind of used to eyeballing it. And then I'm going to turn it, I'm going to slightly angle it the other way, and then go back to my 1/2 inch seam allowance. That little trick will really make your corners look amazing. When you're done sewing your cushion, and it's a little bit hard to see here, you can see my stitching line, you want to trim the corners. This is what's called reducing bulk. And I'm just trimming the corners like this, because it'll make, again, those corners look a lot neater. And you're going to do that on every side of your cushion. So I've sewed my cushion cover all the way around with a 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch seam allowance. And then I've angled in slightly at the corners, and I've also trimmed the corners out a little bit. At this point, if you want, you could overlock the edges, although I have probably made 40 cushions in the last few years, and I've never had one come unraveled, so I don't usually bother with that step. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to turn it inside out. And for this, what you're definitely going to want is a bamboo turner. If you don't have a bamboo turner like this, use a chopstick. Everybody's usually got a chopstick, but you want to very, very, very gently pull those corners out a little bit. And we're going to turn the whole cushion cover. Ooh, we can start seeing it. come to life. It's very exciting at this stage, I think. I always start with my finger first, and then very gently I pop my bamboo turner in there, and I just kind of very, very carefully ease out, because you don't want to pop out that seam. You don't want that seam to like fail and do that. And now I'm going to do that on every corner. And again, you can see I'm putting my thumbnail in there and using that to kind of do a first little pass to pop those seams out. And then I'm going to use the bamboo turner to make it look kind of a little neater and tidier. Then I'm going to do the last one. Now, there's another trick you can do too. You can also take your bamboo turner and you can sort of gently run it along your seam, but do be careful doing this. This is kind of an older trick, but you can kind of just very gently do that just to kind of open up that seam if you feel like it. Then I usually give it a good thwack. Then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to iron it with the wrong side up, with the backing side up. This is really important because what I want to do is I want the fabric to roll to the back so that it looks really clean and finished on the front. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to basically just very carefully take my iron like this, and I'm just going to very gently kind of roll that up like that. And I'm going to press it lightly. Don't go too crazy with the pressing. We're going to press it one more time once we get the pillow insert in. But just a light press to kind of get the wrinkles out and set it before we insert the pillow cushion. Now, if your cushion, your insert, was not exactly square, now's the time you want to make sure you get them lined up. So my cushion insert was not square, and so I know that it is 16.5 inches in this direction, but only 16 in this. So I want to make sure that my cushion cover is the side that is 16 is here, and the side that is 16.5 is here. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert my, I'm going to open up turn over my embroidery, and I'm going to now, wait, did I just do that backwards? See, you have to be careful when you're doing it, because even I just did it. Okay, this is the 16, and this is this is my 16, and this is my 16.5. Okay, great. So I need to make sure my cushion goes in this way. So I'm going to put it on top like that and flip it over so I remember which side is which. Now I can turn it around whatever way I want. And I'm going to put that cushion cover in, the pillow insert in, and then I'm going to start and get those first two corners set. I'm going to use my hand to kind of get up in there and really get those corners settled first. Hopefully you can see that. Really get those kind of up in those corners and kind of thwonk it in there a little bit. Then I'm going to turn it around and put the other side in. And now I'm going to kind of squish the pillow down like that and squish it down. You kind of have to really manhandle it. And then you're going to get those corners in like that, okay? Now, it still won't look great at this point, so do not despair. We're going to then pull the cushion backing kind of nice and snug around it. Now is where we get to thwonk it. This is a very important part of setting the cushion into the cushion. You can see it looks kind of right now, but what we're going to do is from the front, we're going to take it and thwonk it a bunch of times on a table. And that's the first thing we're going to do. It helps get the cushion insert settled in there. From this point, you can turn it over, and you notice already like it's much smoother across the back. Now, the final thing we're going to do with this to make it sort of give it that perfect little touch is, first off, I'm looking for any areas like that where the corners aren't quite nicely aligned. I'm going to get in there and pull out, oh yeah, that corner had gotten folded over. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of just fuss with it for a little bit, keep thwonking it, do that. But here is the real trick. At this point, when you've got it all thwonked and it's all settled in there, what you want to do is you want to, at this point, take your iron and very gently just roll over each edge. I mean quickly. This is not a super hard set press. You just want to kind of take it and go like that. It'll kind of remove those seam lines, and you're just going to like do that. And then once you do that, I mean, your cushion is just going to look amazing. Look at that beautiful cushion. It's so pretty. So this is a great way to use your embroidery. You can enjoy it in so many ways around your house, on your couch, on your bed, in a guest room. These are great gifts. So cushion covers are just a wonderful, practical embroidery project.